Hey, everyone. Welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got an awesome guest on today, and I'll describe her briefly. She first stood on a stage in 2014 when she was invited to speak at a TEDx event. Today, she stands on stages around the world. She engages audiences with her unique blend of science, activities, and sense hacking. And she's the author of books including the best-selling Why Fonts Matter by Penguin Random House. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Hyndman. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Are you ready for 20 questions?
I am, yes.
Okay, question one. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
So I find it really hard to explain what I do. I would say that I show you how to read your own mind so that you can have more autonomy over the subconscious decisions that you make, which is something I think we're all talking about and knowing, sort of aware that will become increasingly important as advances in neuroscience and AI are just revealing how our subconscious brains make decisions. And the way I do this is by showing you, and usually by inviting you to join in with the demonstrations in the experiments, how the appearance of the words that you read transform what you feel, what you think, what you taste, and what you do. And how developing your awareness of this really helps you to, firstly, to hack your own brain and to hack your own senses in some very interesting ways. And also, it means that we can make better informed decisions if we just practice being aware of how and why we're making these decisions.
Great. And just a quick note for the audience. So there is a typographic angle to today's show, and our most popular episode is actually with Eric Speakerman, who's a great typography guy. So definitely check that one out. So question two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
I would say it's that I was never taught any of this. I'm a self-taught graphic designer. I studied sciences at school. So I was never told what I was meant to think, which means that all the way through, I've just had to ask lots of questions and I've asked why all the time. And it means that I ask really annoying questions because I ask the ones that actually we're sort of not meant to ask, we're meant to just assume things. So yes, I would say that just not knowing anything is actually the best piece of knowledge that I've had.
Great. And three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
I just think it's really fascinating. Um, and I'd always wondered why I've always been so interested. It started with things like signage. My first ever job was making signs in my local town. But I've kind of worked out much more recently that I didn't, the thing about any of these things is you don't realize you're different to anybody else. So I just assumed that nobody knew what direction they were going in when they walked anywhere. But what I've discovered more recently is that I don't have an internal compass, but actually most people do. And the way I navigate is by looking for visual clues the whole time. So I've spent my life looking at shop signs and road signs, and this is how I've navigated my way through life. And I think this is where the fascination has begun because I look at things because I need to in a way that you maybe not everybody else needs to look at them. And so I just started being aware and started asking questions and started effectively reading between the lines and wanting to know, why do all of these look so different? Why do they make us feel so different? And once you start falling down these rabbit holes, you kind of don't get out.
Perfect. And some people struggle with number four, but the question is, what does your future look like?
Oh, my future is very much about, I've got 3 books on the go, finding the balance to do enough talks, to do enough paid gigs that I can then just sit down and really immerse myself in writing these books. So I have a very, very clear plan in mind.
Let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
I thought this was a really interesting question, and thinking about how everybody's answers would be so different. So for me, it's very much about how place gives me social context for what I'm investigating. So I look at how the shapes of the words that you read. So a lot of the time it's the semiotics, it's the social codes that are built into the appearance of words, which will not only change from country to country, but also from person to person, depending on your experiences. So I grew up and live in England. I live in London, and place is very much, it gives me the social context to understand how I can interpret the meanings from the semiotic meanings from the words that I'm looking at. But if you put me in a different place, the answers would be completely different. So I think it gives a very, very solid context for what I'm looking at, but also an awareness that we all have such different answers. And I would love to go and explore what I do in different places and to ask different people so we can compare how place gives context or gives understanding to how we read the world.
Great. And 6, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
I would say enjoy the journey. I think it's so interesting that it almost doesn't matter what direction you go in, that you're going to end up doing the things that interest you. I think we all have things that we're drawn to, subjects that we're drawn to. I have much, much younger members in my family, godchildren, nieces, nephews, who are at that stage in their late teens where they're trying to work out what they want to do with their lives and really worrying about, but what if I make the wrong decision? And I can't tell them strongly enough that it just doesn't matter, because you're going to get there. You're going to get to where you want to be. So my advice to my former self would absolutely be just enjoy the journey. It's all going to work out. You're going to get there in the end. But you're not going to know until you get there. But just stop being so anxious and so much in a hurry, and stop worrying that you might have made the wrong choices, because the choice you make is the one you made. So it's the right choice, and it's going to get you somewhere really interesting.
I love that. Okay, so number 7, what's a day in your life like?
It varies from day to day. It depends entirely on what projects I've got on. If it's a book writing day, so I try to spend 2 days a week writing books, then I will usually wake up long before my alarm, because my brain gets really excited and it seems to have ideas in my sleep, but it feels like I can brief it in before I go to sleep. So it kind of wakes me up at 5:36ish going, I've had an idea for that chapter. And then I will just spend the day falling down rabbit holes writing until it gets to some point where I need to stop. Um, Other days, or complete mix, if I'm doing a talk somewhere, it'll be either prepping it, rehearsing the talk, going to the venue, planning it, talking to audiences, meeting the audiences afterwards, which I love doing. There's nothing better than meeting lots and lots of different people and hearing how they react to everything, because we all have such different opinions. And I think it's just a really beautiful thing, being able to build all of these different opinions in. And I'm so incredibly lucky that I'm in a position where I can do this, where I can talk to all of these people, where I've got to where I actually have this platform. So it's so varied. So one day I can be talking to a few thousand people. Another day I can just be solitary on my own, researching, writing books. So and I love that. I'd hate to do the same thing every day.
Great. So number 8 is lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Because I'm constantly researching. When you're writing books, or when I'm writing books, I'm always just looking for more content. I'm lucky enough to know some really amazing scientists, so they will kind of keep me updated on things happening in their worlds and the things that they might think are relevant to what I'm doing. A million Google alerts on really strange subjects. And you can't see it, but I'm surrounded by stalagmites of books, just loads and loads of books, which I gradually get through and read. And I think learning, it's one of the greatest privileges. And also it's a thing that we can keep doing, that keeps our brains just young and active. Um, and when we stop learning, I think the world gets a little bit boring. I think learning is also just being open-minded and listening to each other, and just seeing the future is constantly changing. So I think we need to keep learning to keep up with it.
Nice. And tools. What tools do you use? Are you both digital and analog?
Oh, I'm naturally a Luddite. I like paper. I like sketchbooks. Most of my research I have to say that all of my research is very self-funded. It's never sold to anybody, so I don't have budgets. It's all however I can create it. But that also means that I literally have to use just paper and really, really analog kind of equipment. So I make things. If you come along to my pop-up lab, you'll see kind of cardboard boxes and bits of paper, and you're writing with things with pen. And especially because everything I do is all about your multisensory experiences. The more analog and the more kind of tactile and the more different physical objects I can use, the better. But then, of course, once I'm writing books or creating slides, then it's, the usual. I work on an Apple Mac because my background is that I was a graphic designer for a long time. So it's the regular suite of software along with some quite geeky software to analyze the data. But I kind of love it when I put the computer down and pick up a book or pick up a pen.
Great. Okay. And number 10, how do you deal with work-life balance?
Oh, first answer was, what's that? Which I think many entrepreneurial kind of people who are magpies of ideas, we don't really balance it very well, but I've learned to over the years. When I'm not working, I was a kickboxer for a long time, and these days I still train with a boxing coach and see these kind of exercise sessions as very much a social life. Um, I love I go to lots of different events and conferences, especially ones that are outside my world, because I think it's really interesting just meeting people from all of these different disciplines. And I would say that kind of keeps you a bit grounded, keeps your mind a bit open, and also it's just social and fun. Um, and other than that, I don't think I do balance it very well. I think burnout is something that snaps at all of our heels quite regularly.
Great. So we're past halfway now. Number 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
I would be doing exactly this.
Mm.
I have every now and then I will play the lottery online, and if you've won anything on it, you will get this email that says, "We have good news about your lottery ticket." You kind of know that you're only going to win a fiver or a tenner, but I like to leave it a few days before I check, because in those few days you get the chance to dream. And I feel it's kind of like Schrodinger's lottery winnings. While you haven't checked it, you could have won millions and millions. And I find it's a really interesting way to dream about what you would be doing if you had lots of money. So I would be doing exactly what I'm doing, except I would have the funding to go and do my PhD at Oxford University with a very particular professor who I'd love to study it with. So it would be what I'm doing, but with the budget to really ramp it up to the next level, and also go and take the research and do it in different countries. Yeah, just the money to do it on a much, much bigger scale, and to also involve lots more people with it. So yeah, what kind of things do other people say?
It varies, I think. This one's not one with a real consistent kind of answer. Yeah. So the next question is, what would you not like to do with your career?
I am really rubbish at doing a 9 to 5 job. I find it difficult to fit myself into that kind of time frame. I also, when I first started out in my career, I worked my way up. Began as what back in the day was called a Mac monkey, and then worked my way up to being a graphic designer, freelance for lots of different agencies. But I very much reached the point a good 10, 15 years ago where I decided I really don't want to be working for somebody else. I really don't want to be working for somebody and helping them to sell more stuff to the world that the world doesn't need anymore. So I love what I do because it's more about empowering and enlightening, and it's not about selling stuff.
That question, number 12, does have more consistent answers. People basically don't want to do something that goes against their ideology, that goes against their belief system. They find it really hard to do that, and that's a very common answer for that one.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Number 13 is, what's your favorite word, quote, or sentence?
The word that just came to my mind was why, and I'm so annoying because I just always ask that. But why? But why did that happen? Why was that the outcome? Why did you say that?
Mm,
And my mum says apparently when I was really little, that was just all the time. It was just, but why? So
mm.
yes, it's definitely my favorite word.
How about a least favorite?
Boredom. I don't understand how anybody can be bored. There's so many things to look at, to do, to investigate, to read. Just the idea of boredom I find so sad and solvable, curable as well.
If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what word would you choose?
So other people would pick different words, I know. They do whenever I see people writing about me, they write things like, they write interesting things. I would use the word for myself, curious, because
Mm,
I'm about everything.
great. So final stretch here. What keeps you up at night?
Ooh, partly having too many ideas, and I want to do everything, and there's not enough time, and I have to work out which things am I going to do, which things am I going to just bench until later. And then the other side is the world that we're living in. I don't think anybody can not be kept up at night by worrying about climate, politics, all of the different things that are happening to this world, not understanding humans, and feeling so just unable to change anything or to help in any way. And I would say my attempted antidote to that is to just to understand that the best we can do is to make the small world that each of us inhabit individually the best we can make it. So just doing the best by ourselves and by the people around us, and then hoping that that has a knock-on effect. So I'd say very much that those two things depending and in parallel. And I would imagine, I'm guessing that that's the second one especially is another fairly common theme.
Great. And do you have a dream you're chasing?
Oh, my dream is just, can I have some more hours in the day, please? And to win the lottery so I can go and do my PhD. Um, Getting the books written that I'm trying to write. And also, if I did win the lottery, or the dream would be, I would love to go on a world research tour, take my pop-up lab and all of my strange experiments, which I've done very extensively in this country and a few countries, also North America, I've done them quite a lot, but I'd love to just spend a year, maybe 2 years, taking it all the way around the world. So running exactly the same bonkers experiments, but with different people, with different writing systems, collaborating with different experts, because I would never, never, ever presume that I might know better than somebody else in a country or with a particular language. And I would just love to compare the answers. I don't think anybody's really done anything like that. And I think that would be just so exciting. So if I keep putting that on my dream wall, then one day it might actually happen.
Great. And last few here. What inspires you?
Again, just people, the different answers that I get. So I set up what I'm doing nearly 11 years ago now. It was only meant to be a year out. It was originally because I'd been running my graphic design company for 10 years, and I just needed to step away. I needed to fall back in love with what I was doing. But after a few months, I was just enjoying this new, weird, invented career that I'd or this invented job that I'd made for myself, because it gave me the opportunity to meet all of these different people and to hear all of these different opinions, and to realize that actually as a graphic designer I'd been taught to have one view, and it was just so specific and niche and narrow, and actually everybody has such different viewpoints, and it's really inspiring and exciting and exhilarating to hear all of these different answers and to then start to work out, okay, so what does this tell you? What does this mean? And yeah, I just find that incredibly, incredibly inspiring.
Love it. And 19, any advice you'd like to share?
I would say going back to what I do, I think the advice I would like to share, and it's a thing I'm starting to talk about quite a lot, is to pay attention to your subconscious and how you're making decisions, how the things that you experience, all of the different senses that are involved in all of your experiences and how you're making these decisions. Learning and playing with being aware of this, flexing your kind of cognitive awareness, I think is going to be increasingly important in the future. And if you just start in the same way that you would do yoga or exercise, you're just kind of flexing these muscles and starting to be aware of them, starting to make them stronger. I think this is going to be a really useful tool going forwards.
Great. And 20, the one everyone loves. How can our listeners keep tabs on you? What should we be watching from you?
Yes, so my name is Sarah Hyndman. So you can find me under my name in bookshops. Please go to bookshops. Don't buy books from rocket sellers. And also my company is called Type Tasting. So the idea was originally like type version of wine tastings, but then it's because it's turned into this weird multi-sensory immersive world, it makes sense that it's called Type Tasting. So the website is Type Tasting, and on most of socials, that's how you'll find me.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being on. I was super excited to bring you on and to dig deep because a lot of the work I do actually is around making all this creative stuff dinner table conversation, and I found that I saw that a lot in your work and wanted to hear you go through this. So thank you so much for being on today.
That's absolutely my pleasure. I love the questions.
Thanks so much.